You are now listening to Testimonies with Terry.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the 6th episode of Season 2 of Testimonies with Terry. I'm your host, Terry Skaggs, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at TWTerryPod, and on Facebook by liking the Testimonies with Terry page. Well, guys, I'm pretty pumped for this week's episode, because you're essentially going to get a 2-for-1. First, you're going to hear the testimony of a man who was known as the Jesus Freak basketball player after getting saved in high school. You'll hear how Jesus changed his outlook on life and his approach to stepping on the court, but also how the things of this world led him away from staying focused on Christ. Feeling lost and without purpose, with his dreams of becoming a professional basketball player crushed, you'll then hear the testimony of how 3 Nails Clothing came to be. From its humble beginnings in the basement of his home while trying to juggle being a husband, father, and working his 9-to-5 job, to now being in his own warehouse and leading the industry in premium Christian athletic apparel. This man's grit and relentlessness in chasing after God's purpose for him will leave you feeling motivated to do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Derek Dahl's testimony.
All right, everyone. I am here with the founder and CEO of 3 Nails Clothing, Derek Dahl. Derek, man, thanks so much for taking time to come on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I had first heard about 3 Nails through Chad Lale, a professional wrestler. I interviewed him earlier on this season of Testimonies with Terry, and he posted a picture of him in a 3 Nails workout shirt, and he had tagged, the account. And so I looked into it. I'm just like, man, this is really cool clothing, and looked into the website, and I'm just like, whoa, holy cow, they're in Minnesota. And looked even more. I'm just like, whoa, they're only an hour away from my house. I'm just like, I got to connect with these guys and get the story here. So, we've been able to communicate on Instagram, and here we are.
Here we are. Oh, I absolutely love it, man. Excited for today.
Yeah. Well, dude, let's, we're going to get into the story of 3 Nails. But before we do that, we're going to get into your story. So, Derek, why don't we start off with where did you grow up and what was family life like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town called Spring Lake Park. Not many people, even in Minnesota, know where that's at. It's right next to Blaine. And yeah, grew up in a good home, good parents that love me. My mom was, she worked for a place called Land O'Lakes. So she was a business analyst there. My dad was a general contractor, so he had his own construction business. And I mean, he coached me all the way from first grade up until probably 8th grade, I believe. So yeah, sports, extremely important in my life. My childhood, where I grew up, that's all I did, was just play basketball. Basketball, football, baseball up until 6th grade, but basketball really was my favorite sport, my dad's favorite sport. And that's pretty much all that I did. We didn't have a lake house or, cabin or anything. My parents sacrificed a lot for me to be able to play AAU basketball, and that's all that I did growing up.
Yeah. What was it about basketball that really just drew you into it?
Man, I mean, I don't think I've ever had that question before. It's a really good question. I think it's just the fast-paced environment of it. I love how, a game can change. You're down 20 points, and then you can just flip that upside down and, end up winning the game, by one bucket. And, especially having my dad, his claim to fame was he averaged 27.8 points a game in high school without a 3-point line back in the day. So that was all his claim to fame. He was only in 1A basketball, so I don't give him too much credit, but it's being able to be raised in a home. He was just a bulldog. He was, that type of guy, just very, very hard on me. And my mom was the angel, so to speak. But my dad was just the most competitive person I've ever met in my life. And so seeing how much he loved the competitiveness of basketball, I related to that in a heartbeat, and I just got addicted to it. And the teamwork aspect too. I love being able to be a leader on the court. I was a point guard. So being able to be that general that's leading the team, calling the plays, you get to dictate the tempo of the game, just every facet of it. Absolutely loved it.
Gotcha. What was school like for you? I know sports were a big part of your life. What was, the school aspect like for you?
Oh, man. So I hated school. I love school, being social with friends. I mean, I'm an extrovert. I just love being around people, get energy from it. But as far as doing schoolwork, never passionate about it. But I still, I was like the guy that got like a 3.0 type of thing, did what I needed to do, but I wasn't staying out for extra credit or anything like that.
Yeah. And then, as we'll get into it, your company is really just founded on, Jesus Christ. But where did faith start to come into your life? Is that something that you just always had growing up, or what was that part of your life like during your earlier years?
Yeah, so it really started when I was 14 years old. My dad went to this men's conference in Wisconsin. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with Miles Monroe. He, is just this world-renowned pastor speaker from the Bahamas. And they had this men's conference there. And my dad, it really changed his life. And he was into faith, but he wasn't really into faith that much, like my mom was. And so he came back home on fire for God for the very first time that my mom has ever seen, myself or my sister's ever seen. And he had this DVD. And this is, for, grown men, right? Like men's conference. But they were gone. I forget, they went out to eat or something. I was home and I played the DVD and I was just in awe of what this man was saying about God has created you for a purpose. He has a purpose for your life. And it's not outside of you, it's inside of you. And you can do great things in this world, not only for yourself and your family, but to inspire other people too. And obviously, ultimately, being able to inspire others to get to heaven one day and have that salvation. And so I'm just like, it's okay to be in business. It's okay to make money while also being a Christian man that's loving and is generous and, wants to take care of their family, but also be able to take care of other people in life too. And, I'm not much for the prosperity gospel, so to speak, of, hey, give God $2,000, he'll give you 5,000, like that type of thing. Right. But this man, what he was speaking that was true of like, hey, money's a tool. And you can use it for God's kingdom. And so after watching that DVD, at the end of it, he had a salvation prayer, and I got saved. So that was my first. I honestly get like a little emotional about it because I was just home alone. There was no one there but me and Jesus, and that was such a strong moment in my life. Yeah. And even moving forward, like I'm 14 years old. My friends are biking, playing sports, doing things. And even though, like I said, I play basketball, but for myself, like I watched like everything that I could consume. My dad bought other DVDs of him, and I watched his DVDs like day and night, and I took my own notes. And so I really do believe God has me here in this position now, for a reason. And he really built me and grew me since 14 years old. Yeah,
dude, that's incredible. What a moment to have just there by yourself with Jesus, giving your life to him. What was that like? Once you kind of gave your life to the Lord there, like what kind of changes did you start either making in your life, or did you just start kind of noticing about yourself?
Yeah, well, once you get that glimpse of it, you can't keep it to yourself. You just want to share with everybody. So I was, it changed my life. So I was telling my friends about it. I was having them sit down and watch these DVDs with me. That's awesome. Some of my friends thought it was super boring, and then other friends were really interested, like myself. And so I began to notice, especially with my reputation of, it's Derek Dahl. He's the basketball player that is a Jesus freak, so to speak. But the way that I carried myself too was I didn't shove it down down anybody's throat. I really did it in a natural way. And, it 100% from that day, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason of like why I'm here and living. And it gave me direction in life. It kept me out of, drinking at a young age or partying like other people do in high school. It kept me really focused on the main goal, which at that time was not business. It was basketball. It was basketball and God. And, so it really helped my decision making of, the books that I was reading, the television, the music that I was consuming, instead of listening to, super secular rap, I would listen to, Christian music, Christian rap. It changed my life forever, and how to, take that and influence others around me. It's just so cool how God works, man.
Man, that's yeah, like you said, just super cool just to really see and hear just that heart transformation God did in you. It sounds like from the inside out that prayer, like it wasn't just a one-time deal for you. Like, no, it was a life change for you. And so I'm wondering, how did that kind of affect your view on basketball? Once you did give your life to Jesus, did that kind of change the way you looked at basketball, or just how you went about basketball?
Oh, 100% changed it, because now I wasn't just playing basketball for, my glory and what I want to do with my life. And again, I'm 14 years old, right? But it's like, this is my mission, is to become a professional basketball player, to use that platform to give God glory one day, and to use that influence. And, I guess I don't want to step too far ahead, but just like my business and everything now, like I really thought my purpose in this world was to become a professional basketball player. And so when I got hurt in college, I sprained my ankle twice. I had like my third concussion. I was purposeless when I didn't know what to do with my life. And so that training though with basketball had led to business. And then now, it trained me to where I'm at now. And it's the same, it's the same like platform, influence. It's the same thing as basketball now. And so it's just crazy how God literally worked everything for its good. But yeah, I guess just going back to your question, yeah, it became a mission in life rather than just a game, a sport. It was everything, the leadership qualities of basketball I was doing to really shape and mold me to be able to lead other people to Christ too. And even in basketball, when I played AU, we had hotels where we would stay in at Atlanta or Cincinnati for these huge tournaments. And I've had friends who didn't have good upbringings, right? These kids are freaks of nature, athletes, just so athletic, but just listening to the worst secular music, the things that they consume. It's not bad, right? It's no judgment, but just didn't have good upbringings. And for me to talk about Jesus was just so foreign to them. And then just doing it in a natural way, they just were asking different questions. And so, yeah, it was just like a mission, like on the court and even off the court. And it's again, the whole underlying thing here is it gave me purpose in life.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I'm wondering, what advice would you have for current high school athletes that, have that faith in Jesus, have that passion to just share Jesus, but they're maybe uncomfortable, or they're afraid to put themselves out there and step out in faith to, try to show their teammates who don't know Jesus what Jesus can do for their lives? What advice would you give to those high school athletes?
Honestly, this is the kind of thing I can say to apply in your life in general, but we are all going to die one day. And that is almost a daily reminder for myself for what I do. Cause it doesn't matter. Like, your fear goes away when you realize that you're going to die, and you're not going to take anybody with you. When you die, it's just going to be you and the Creator. And so the fear of failure, the fear of being uncomfortable, you got to get over that, because, it's like the famous saying is like, everything that you want in life is beyond that fear. And just step out in boldness. And especially at the end of the day, when you're facing your Creator, you're going to be judged on the things that you did, the good that you brought into this world, and the talents and skills that He's given you to influence others. Like we're not here for just ourselves. We're not here just for a nice house, nice car, a luxury way of living. It's like, oh man, we're here to save souls for the kingdom of God. and fulfill our purpose before we leave this earth. And in order to do that, you have to influence others. And like I said earlier, when you have that relationship with Jesus and you know what that feels like, you can't keep that to yourself. You just want to share that with everybody
Amen.
you meet, and then it doesn't become shoving it down someone's throat of like, hey, can I talk to you about Jesus? It just comes up in your natural life. And even like the best part about it is you get to shine by example. They see your life. They see how happy you are. They see the peace in your life. Like they're going to get curious about that. And again, us as Christians, not everything is perfect, as you know. Like we go through trials, and that's a biblical like promise. Like you're gonna go through storms, but we have peace in the storms, and that's something that people of this world that don't have Jesus in their lives, they don't have peace. What peace do they have to cling on to? So again, I would just suggest just stepping out in boldness and in faith, and understand that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Anything with growth in life always starts with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And once you take that first step, God is going to work out those things in your favor. And it just all ends up working out.
Yeah, that's a good word. How did you deal with, comments from other players or other teammates that did make fun of your faith or did desecrate what you believed in?
Yeah, I would say that for myself personally, I was very fortunate where I didn't have many people make fun of me in the sense of like I was the leader. I was the captain of the basketball team. Just if anything, it was just like, hey man, Derek's the Jesus freak, so to speak, right? But it was never like I was made fun of or anything. And I'm very fortunate in that regard. But for me, again, it's a mission at the end of the day. So it's like, it doesn't matter what anybody says. And especially now in my business, the haters that you have now compared to like back in the day, you would think that like you would be bullied or anything in high school. It's like, no, I had a really good childhood. Like I was super fortunate. There's a lot of people out there that can't say the same thing. I was able to be a leader in my community at a young age, and a lot of people looked up to me, and I knew that, I had influence and everybody was watching me. Are they going to watch me, partying and drinking and doing all this other stuff? Or am I going to use my influence for God's kingdom and his glory? And yeah, it didn't matter what anybody else thought of me. I'm on a mission at the end of the day. And, I'm going to get there.
Amen, dude. Amen. So high school years, basketball is a big part of your life. I'm imagining you were recruited throughout high school.
Yeah. I wasn't a 5-star athlete by any means, 5'10" white guy, but I was pretty quick on the court back in my day. And, I had an opportunity. I got a couple D1 letters. One was to West Point, and I just didn't want to end up joining the Army and so forth.
Yep.
But I ended up going to Bethel my freshman year freshman year of college, and stayed there for the first year. Started basketball player, and we can get into a whole different topic of what changed in my life there. A lot changed, but then I ended up going to St. Thomas my sophomore year and transferred there. There's a lot that happened. We can dive deep into it, but yeah. Man, college years is crazy.
Yeah, let's get into that. What was your experience at Bethel like?
Yeah, so Bethel was great. It was really good. I was just extremely irresponsible. I ended up getting a girlfriend at the time that, really changed my perspective in life. I really stepped out of my faith, so to speak. There's so many different things I can go into, and it's not about like just her, right? There's no one to blame but me at the end of the day. My faith wasn't like, there was gaps in my faith at that time. And once I found someone that I, really, loved and cherished at that time, you begin to idolize that person over idolizing Jesus. And so I was just, obsessed with spending my time with that girl at that time and basketball. And then my faith just kind of took, it was just on the back burner. And I prayed less during that time. And I was, 19 years old. Then I started getting curious about drinking because my mom had told me, if you're old enough to serve your country, you're old enough to have a drink. She's like, I don't care if you drink, Derek, just make sure that you're safe and, secure. And so that to me was like, all right, let's maybe go try this out, and
Yeah, it's permission.
I know. And my mom didn't mean it in that way, but I took it in that way.
Yeah.
And it was bad. And so, you know what though? Like, I don't regret it because I realized that it's empty. I did fall into that trap of that partying, and it is so empty. You think it's fun at the time. You wake up the next morning with a hangover, and it's like, man, like this isn't, especially for myself, like I was just like that person on a mission with a purpose. And then I'm this other person that's, drinking and partying. Like, this isn't who I am. And it was like that trap that I was just trying to get out of, and I was trying to find myself, I guess. And those were really hard years. And I ended up breaking up with that girlfriend. And that's when everything happened I got hurt with basketball, really felt purposeless, ended up partying, for probably 2 years or a year and a half, I guess. And I tell you what, there was a whole year where I don't even know if I prayed like at all. If anything, it was just God help me, because I knew I was empty. I was the best shape I've ever been in my life physically. I was ripped. I was everything. I felt good about my self-confidence, but inside I was a wreck. And I needed Jesus. And deep down inside, if you were to ask me, I knew that I needed to get my relationship back to God. And, like I said, we can get into it, but that's when I really met my wife. And I was like, God, let me, meet somebody to my future wife, to get me out of this mess. And it never happened, right? I was trying to get back to God. And then, like 6 months later, I ended up meeting my wife, and she invited me to church again. And that's when I came back to my faith, and I am where I am now. And it's just crazy how I had that, like that 2 to 3, I would say 2 years where I really stepped back on my faith, full admittedly, and I was not who I am. And I finally went back to who I was, but even better now. And using this as an influence or a platform to say, I know what it feels like. I know what it is to be out, drinking and mess around, with things you shouldn't be messing around with, and, being obsessed with girls and all that stuff that it brings, what society glorifies.
Yeah.
Women and all that stuff. And it's empty, man. You need Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And you said that you ended up transferring to St. Thomas after year and a half.
Yep.
What led into that transfer?
So for me, it was again, I was just very prideful during that time in my life. It was basketball reasoning. I started, played, and then during January, I couldn't play during the month of January because my grades were so bad. I just didn't apply myself at all to the school. And I had to sit out for J term. So for that month of January, and my coach was very upset with me, ended up benching me when I got back eligible, had to really earn my way back up there. But even like the last 4 or 5 games, I barely played, and it was like he was punishing me for having bad grades, which again, I don't blame him for. Like I needed it, but for myself, I'm like, man, I'm the best guy, best point guard on this team. I should be starting. And at the time, my girlfriend, she went to St. Thomas too, and I didn't go there for her. They just had a better basketball team, and I knew I wanted to do something in business too. So they had a better business program, and so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to check it out. I checked it out, had good vibes, and that's what led to the transfer. So I went to St. Thomas my sophomore year, ended up dropping out because my mom basically told me one day, I can't afford you. And I got like every grant in the book, but my parents still had to pay for schooling. And she just said, Derek, I can't afford it anymore. And I was like, she's like, you're going to have to go find a full-time job. And it's just crazy how like that whole experience happened. And I was like, man, well, I can't play basketball now. So now I'm gonna have to figure something out. And so I got a full-time job and ended up dropping out of college with a 1.8 GPA. I mean, it's just crazy how, I just didn't apply myself, just never liked school at all, right? I was pretty much there just for basketball.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what was that like having to give up basketball? I mean, that had been such a huge part of your life up to this point, and now it's almost kind of like that passion was being taken away from you, so to speak. How did you deal with that?
So I didn't give it up. I kept going at it on the side of my full-time jobs in the hopes that one day I'm going to be trained well enough to go play overseas or go play somewhere professionally. And doing that, so I worked, full-time jobs for like 2-year period or so. And then that's when I met my wife. And so even when I met her, I was all in on basketball. And I was actually going to go play at Concordia St. Paul, D2. They wanted me to walk on. They already had their scholarships and everything out. And it was really late, like in the summer too. So it was like they were kind of doing me a favor. And I was good enough to walk on. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, in my mind, I was still living the dream. I wasn't letting the dream go until I met my wife. And as we were continuing to move along in our relationship, I realized that basketball wasn't the thing, and that crushed me because that was my identity. Think about that, right? Like, your identity is supposed to be in Christ, right? But like, I do believe God has given you specific talents and skills that it is your identity. Like, it's my purpose, right? To be a kingdom businessman. That's a part of my identity, but that's not like, if I lost my business, I still have my identity in Christ, right? It's like I'm still grounded. But yeah, that's where I really started to see the transitioning of what is this reasoning of like, why didn't I make it in basketball? I felt like God really had this purpose in my life. Where did I miss it? And honestly, like, I didn't even get it then, but years later you look back now and it's like, wow, all the mindset, the leadership qualities, teamwork, everything that had groomed me in basketball built me for this life of business now. But at the time, I was crushed. My identity was gone. I didn't know really who I was. And I just, I was a Christian and everything, and getting back. And honestly, like, I still felt peace in my heart because I was finally getting back to my roots and faith in Jesus. But yeah, I can't lie to you, man. I was crushed in spirit. Yeah.
Looking back at that time of continuing to pursue basketball after dropping out of college, would you say that was more out of your own, just like bound and determinist to, I'm just going to do this anyway? Or would you say that at the time you felt the Lord kind of calling you to, hey, just keep doing this, keep pursuing this?
Yeah, I really feel like, a little bit of both. I think selfishly, yeah, I could be doing it for myself, but if you go back to me being 14 years old and like just those foundation years of spending time with God, I really did believe that was God's purpose for my life, right? And you can't play basketball forever, but I knew that like I need to be at a platform to use that influence, being a basketball player. And that was the best thing that I was like, that's what I was good at. That's the only thing that I was good at in life. I wasn't good at school. I was a good communicator and stuff, but I didn't think about it at that time. Like, I just played basketball, so I didn't know anything else.
Yeah, man. And so, man, life isn't turning out the way that you wanted to at this point. You go to kind of taking a step back in your faith. Basketball is kind of being taken away from you. College itself is being taken away from you. You're having to work a 9 to 5. But it sounds like this is also the period of time where you did meet your wife.
Yeah.
And so tell us how that went.
So again, I did meet my wife kind of like at the end of my party stage. And again, man, I'm not proud of anything that happened during that time. But meeting her was the best thing ever. Started getting back into church. And we got engaged within 8 months. I always put a rule of like, I need to date someone for at least 2 years to know. And then it's just funny how God works. And you just, when you know, like meeting Gabby. Funny thing is I knew her family in middle school.
Oh, really?
So I knew Gabby when I was in like 7th grade and she was in 6th grade. And like one of my good friends growing up, his name is Riley. And that was his cousin was Gabby. And it was ironically enough, just so funny. Like when I was in 8th grade and she was in 7th grade, we were over there and they were like, "Oh man, you should talk to Gabby." You know, when we were in middle school, like trying to like hook us up, and I was like, "Nah, man, like, you know, I got better things to do. I got basketball and stuff." And it's just so funny, full circle, how I ended up meeting her, and you know, her parents knew them, and I'll just tell you the story. It was my birthday on December 31st, and of course, during that day, you know, I got a party bus and we went downtown Stillwater, and my friend's uncle owns this bar. Ended up seeing her dad at the bar, and I was like, "Hey, Derek, come here. You know, how's it going?" And she was there, and we kind of rekindled a little bit. And I messaged her, slid in the DMs a couple days later, talked to her, but nothing really happened. And it fizzled out like 2 months later. And then her dad invited me to like this like job application, or to this job interview for this personal training job. And I was really into fitness, and ended up meeting with him, and he was like, "Man, you should really talk to Gabby. You know, she was really into you at, you know, your birthday." And I was like, "Oh, I tried talking to her. I don't know what happened." And so anyways, I was actually planning on messaging her after that job interview, and she messaged me first, and then it rekindled, and lo and behold, I knew she was the one because our first date was Chipotle. We got Chipotle and watched the movie Step Brothers.
Hey, there you go.
And you know, it's like she's Miss Minnesota pageant girl, and I'm just like, you know, thinking she's going to be just too high maintenance. I've been with the pretty girls, and I just don't want to deal with that, right? I just want a girl who loves Jesus and down to earth. And so to see her, you know, just be so down to earth, and during that time was everything that I needed. And again, like really helped me with my faith, and she really helped me out with just the decisions of basketball and just talking about life in general. Like I would hang out with her, you know, like start at like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and there was some nights so I would literally be at her house purely talking on the couch till 5 a.m.
Wow.
I mean, in-depth conversations. And you just can't there's like, how do you find that chemistry, you know? And I mean, time just flew by so fast with her. And so I just knew that she was the one. And again, she just you can find, you know, when you can find someone that really helps you become a better person and helps you out with your life's purpose and is supportive of you, doesn't like shove their opinion down your throat like some other, you know, relationships do, or have false expectations. Like just love me for me, believed in me, believe what God was telling me about basketball, and didn't question it. And that's just one thing I do really admire about my wife, that she believed in me. Yeah,
man. So important to have a spouse that really just speaks life into you and over you and encourages you. So yeah, you guys dated a little while, got engaged and got married. What was married life like for you that first year or so?
Oh man, married life was great. We ended up doing the smart thing. We've never gone on a honeymoon yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we took the money that we got from our wedding, and we put in a down payment for our home. So we got a townhome, and yeah, man, she worked full time. I worked full time, trying to figure out what we're gonna do in life. Ended up getting our pet Stella. We have a 115-pound Bernese Mountain Dog. She's just a fluffy stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And you know, life was great at that time. And again, though, I would say, I mean, it was good in that regard. Like she was healthy. We were able to do normal things. We were able to go hiking and things. But I was working a job that I hated.
What were you doing?
So I was a job hopper. I hopped around like every 6 months. I was a financial advisor. I guess this was back like right before we got married, or no, we did get married when we lived downtown. I was a financial advisor downtown Minneapolis. I wore the suit, everything, took the light rail there, you know, in the morning on the way back. And that was kind of like my journey of like trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And I thought, you know, 6 figures was the end goal with this financial, you know, advising job. And I quickly began to learn, I don't like this. I love helping people, like talking to people, but this isn't what I want to do in life. And then anyways, fast track, moved into our townhouse, and I ended up working at a company called Snap Fitness. And I was at the corporate place, and I was a project manager over there. And I commuted 1 hour there on the way there to work and an hour back. So there's a lot of time in the car to spend with God and to listen to podcasts and just grow. But still every day, hated it. I mean, hated being on somebody else's time, had like just not working on my own goals. And what's the end goal? You know, like it's not money, it's fulfillment for me and passion. Money's very important, but it was never the end goal. So I wasn't never depressed, but I mean, started like having like depressive thoughts and kind of sharing that with my wife, Gabby, and just be like, I don't know what I want to do in life. I knew at an early age, God had this huge purpose for me, but like, what is it now? Like, it's not basketball. And so I began looking at YouTube and looking at other YouTubers out there that have created businesses from scratch with like, you know, no money. Ended up watching this guy named Gerard Adams. He had a series called Leaders Create Leaders, and he was interviewing other CEOs out there and other founders of companies and just hearing their stories of people like me that, you know, came up from very humble beginning, right? Like my parents were lower to middle class, didn't really have, you know, too much money, very hardworking though. And someone like me that can make it and can provide a life of freedom. And so that began that journey of what can I do? And I remember looking at a few different clothing brands out there that I loved. But there was, you know, nothing like us that like represented my faith. And then you look at the Christian clothing and most of them are very cheesy, very, you know, big Bible quotes. And again, there's a huge market for it. I'm not hating on it at all. But for me, it wasn't something that I wanted to wear that was like subtle, sleek, minimalist, but built with premium, like true premium like, you know, fabrics and materials. And so this idea, to be honest with you, that idea started in me like back in 2013, probably. So this was years ago too, that I just had that idea.
Yeah.
And so it kind of kept coming back at me. And I was thinking of different ideas though. And e-commerce was just blowing up at that time. And that's where the idea of 3 Nails started. I don't know if you want to hop into that, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of where things go.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hop into that. So you get this dream in 2013 while you're working this job that you do not like at all. A lot of travel time, like you said, a lot of time though to also spend in prayer and spend with God and just kind of, you know, get knowledge from these podcasts and everything. So what were kind of the next steps with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for me, I didn't know the next steps. I didn't know, like it was just the unknown, right? And I remember invited my buddy out to go get sushi. His name's Travis, and he'd been one of my best friends since 6th grade. And I told him my idea of this, and he's like, "Man, it's a solid idea. You should give this a go." And I mean, I just kind of procrastinated on it up until then, right? And then after that meeting with Travis, I went home that day and I said, "You know, enough's enough. I've got to give this a go. I've got to just start this. Other people have been able to do it. I can do it." I had no mentor. Nobody showed me the ropes. It was just myself. And at the time, my cousin Evan was living with me, and he had more money than me at the time, and he was living with me. And I told him about this dream, and he loved it. And I said, "You know, do you want to be an investor? I'll just do everything and just put up money, right?" So I put up 70% of the finances and he would put up 30%. So he helped me out, you know, a little bit financially, and he was very hands off though. And I just started. I didn't know how to do it. I looked at YouTube videos, how to find clothing manufacturers, you know, how to market. And just, you know, I was in the industry though. Like I was in fitness. I knew what I wanted to do of, you know, being in the fitness industry or business wise. And I saw other people out there or other businesses on Instagram and seeing how big that was. So I started the Instagram, started Facebook, looked at Google. I mean, I was so obsessed with it. And I really do believe the people that are successful in life are the people that just have this magnificent obsession with something and they only do that one thing, you know? And that's all I did. You know, it's not like I neglected my wife or anything, but during that time, this was before my wife got sick, but, you know, I spent time with her and we got pregnant and I built this business. And especially with like, you know, now like finding out that we're pregnant, it was even more of a reason for me to work my butt off so that my, you know, future kid, you know, would be set up better. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah. Wow. Quick little detour. What was that like becoming a father?
I mean, I always just say this, like you can mentally prepare as much as you want, you know, ahead of time. nothing's going to prepare you until you actually see your son or daughter in person. And for myself, at the time too, my wife and I, we started a couple vlog channel that we did before I started my own YouTube channel. And so we vlogged the whole experience. I'm so cool because you can look back on it anytime. And when my son was born, they put him on her chest. And when he opened his eyes, the first person that he saw in this life was me. I was at the right-hand side of the bed, and it still makes me like emotional to this day because I thought about it. I'm like, I'm the first person that this boy laid eyes on in life. And like, it was the symbolism of like, he's looking to me now. I have to be here to provide for him and care for him and make sure that he can grow into the man of God that God has created him to be, and not to push my ambitions or dreams onto him, but to let him discover his own purpose at his time in life and help him get there. Especially with my dad was so good with me, but he was so hard on me. And there's so many things that I will never do that my dad did with me, with my son. And so at that moment, I knew like, just what I'm going to do with him differently than my dad did. And then the good things that my dad did do that I will continue to do with him. And so that moment was so special because, again, I was, how old was I? 25 years old. And, I was 24 when I started Three Nails, but I turned 25 when he was born. And, life-changing day forever. I mean, you're everything, your time with friends, your time with family. I mean, your focus, how you manage your time with anything in life, it all changes for your son or daughter.
Yeah, man. And I think about that period of your time too. You don't give birth. Your wife gives birth to Dax. And meanwhile, you're still working your 9 to 5 and you're still trying to get Three Nails off the ground here. Like, how did you even begin to manage those days and just your time and your schedule with all that?
Man, I mean, looking at it and that, like, being asked that, I don't know. You just do it. For me, I've just always been an advocate of you just get things done. The people that want it bad are going to find a way, no matter what. People ask me all the time, how do you find a clothing manufacturer? How do you find this? It's like, you just do it. And there's really nothing else to it. And for me, I lost a lot of sleep during that time, especially because at the birth of our son, my wife began getting extremely ill. They left a little bit of the placenta in her, which caused a infection. And it wasn't until probably a month and a half later, we found out that she was diagnosed with something called Addison's disease. And she had Still's disease before that too. So she had some autoimmune issues, but she was very well during that time. She didn't really have much sickness. But the craziest thing ever is when we went back and forth to the doctor, they would just send us home with postpartum depression. Just say your wife's just depressed, anxiety. And we knew something was wrong. I mean, she was throwing up like all day long. And it was just like, something is wrong. And we brought her down to the U of M and they had 26 doctors working on her. I mean, her lips were turning blue and her oxygen levels were going down and stuff. And she was there for 26 days. Our newborn couldn't even be in the hospital during that time with her. And imagine that being a mom, not having your newborn for 26 days. I mean, it was so hard. And especially for me, I had to take off so much time of work and I had to get FMLA so I wouldn't get fired from my job because I was missing so much time. And that goes back to the whole driving there an hour and then an hour way home. I just suffocated working for somebody else and having to message somebody when I had to bring my wife into the work. I mean, it looked like I was lying. I wasn't. I legitimately had to bring my wife in. There was one month I had to bring her in 21 days to the ER, to the hospital, out of 30 days of the month at her very worst. I mean, 21 days? Jeez. I've never heard of anybody in my life that has ever done that.
Right.
I mean, I was just trying to keep it together, man. So and then not, fall back on the business and continue to believe that this dream. And I was posting every single day on Instagram. I was grinding, but that was during that time, it was an escape to me. That's what my purpose in life, it came. So that basketball that left me, gaining this new identity and what God had this new purpose for me. That was my identity now, is I'm Derek, man of God, kingdom businessman, going to use this platform for God, right? Not just another meaningless clothing brand, a brand that is going to spread the kingdom of God, and in the gym, out of the gym, and, really become a global brand for God's glory, because there's no one like us out there. And businesses finding a problem, creating a solution. And that was the problem that I was trying to solve. And that was my escape during when my wife was in the hospital or even at home trying to take care of her. Balancing out with my mom had to come live with us for 3 months to take care of my 1-year-old son, just so I could go to work and back. And then I would come home and reprieve her, and she would go to sleep like in the evening just to like make sure she's getting enough rest. And I mean, it was just such a tough time in life. Mentally speaking, I've never had like panic attacks. And I remember going to sleep one night and I had a panic attack right before I went to sleep. And I was like, my hands were shaking. Like it felt like pins and needles everywhere. I like didn't feel like I was in real life. It's called depersonalization.
Yep.
Like your brain has so much stress where it tries to protect itself, from hurting its, brain damage. So it like puts this layer of like fog over you. So you're just like really like in brain fog, and you feel like you're in a dream, but you're in real life. And it was like during that panic attack, and even like began after that, like for like months, I would feel like I was in a dream, and I would get like really bad anxiety at work. Mm-hmm. And I had to like, talk to my mom or like, my wife about it. I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me. Like, is something wrong with me? Do I need to get checked out? And it was just the stress of life. I mean, can you blame me, right? Like no. All the stuff's been thrown at me, and I was just trying to keep it together. And again, though, my faith was very strong, and, I was keeping intact with, reading my Bible. At that time, though, I didn't set up, like my routine now is so strong that back then I didn't have it as much as, a concrete routine, but I was still like very close. And I was like all day, at work when I wasn't on the phone with, clients or whatever, I was listening to sermons. I had an ear pod in my ear all day long. If I went to the bathroom, I had my AirPods in, and I was listening to sermons, business, anything to just keep uplifting me, because believe it or not, I've got a great support group, family and friends, but there was no like encouragement of like, hey man, you're going to get through this. Like, and I'm not a guy that needs the praise either, because again, it's just so weird. Because like growing up, I was always the guy that everyone looked to, and I was the guy that everyone leaned on. So when I'm the guy that everyone leans on, it's like, who do I lean on? Yeah. I didn't have anybody to lean on. Someone I leaned on was my wife. She was in the hospital, so I couldn't lean on her. My mom, someone I leaned on. She was living with me. She was trying to just keep it mentally from breaking down. So it's like, I didn't have anybody to really lean on during that time. And people didn't really know, even my friend group didn't really know what was going on. They saw my brand, and my brand started to grow followers. So that means they probably thought I was successful, and I wasn't. Being, ruined financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, I wasn't working out. Like everything in that time was honestly it was just a train wreck. But I fasted more than I ever had in my life. Went on like a 3-day fast, just water, just seeking God. My hunger to learn to seek God began to grow. It says in Jeremiah 20, everyone says Jeremiah 29:11, right? The famous verse, yep. But Jeremiah 29:13, yeah. A couple of verses later, right? You will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all of your heart. Amen. And that was prominent to me. It's like, I'm going to find God. I'm going to find what his purpose, everything is for me. Not only that, but like, how to just make it through this with peace, my wife's health, everything that's going on. And everybody prayed for her. And it's like, why isn't she getting healed? Am I praying wrong? Am I doing something wrong? I'm trying to live a holy life. I'm not doing anything stupid, things that we can get into talking men to men here, right? Like pornography is a huge issue, right? Yep. Something that I personally had a huge issue with growing up in high school, and a lot of my friends did too. And so meeting my wife, like I ditched that stuff forever. And so like, I'm like kind of putting this like task sheet, right? I'm like, I'm not looking at porn. Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not, I'm not lying or cheating or doing anything stupid in my life. Like, why is this happening? And isn't it funny? It's like, you can't give God your list of like what you're doing right. Like
Right.
it doesn't, just put in my mind at that time, you try to make your case of like, God, why is this happening?
Yep.
And sometimes we just don't understand, until one day I was in the shower and I was just in tears, man. And then it just like dawned upon me. I don't know if it was God, but it was in my head. And it was like, all these prayers, that voice was saying, all these prayers are keeping your wife alive. Not to heal her, but these prayers that everybody's praying for are keeping your wife alive.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like I literally sat down in my shower and I was like, just pondering on that. I'm like, wow, what a perspective shift, right? Life is all about perspective. And so my perspective now is, my wife's alive. She didn't die.
Yeah.
Instead of, why isn't she healed and back to normal so we can, so I can live a good life for my own self, like the audacity that I had back in the time, right? It's pride. You don't know why some people don't make it, with their health and why others do. We don't know, but there's no wrong or right way of praying. Everyone's praying for her. And I do believe that, to this day, those prayers have kept her alive.
Yeah, man. As you're talking there, I just keep hearing the word like wilderness. And I think back to after Jesus got baptized, the Holy Spirit led him into the wilderness and he fasted, for the 40 days, right? And I just kind of see some of the parallels there where you fasted for 3 days and how that was just a really wilderness kind of season of your life. As you look back at that, what do you think God was showing you? What do you think God was teaching you or instilling you during that season?
Oh, man, I think the best way of saying this is a lot of things went right for me in my life growing up. Again, I was very fortunate. Childhood, I was a leader in my community. I was the guy that a lot of people looked up to, had a lot of things good go for me. But I worked hard for it, right? I disciplined myself. I earned that. However, now I'm going into something that is a storm that I can't control. I could control a lot of things in the back in the day. I can't control this. I can't control my wife's health. So the biggest thing that I've learned is not to rebuke the storm, because sometimes the storms are there to teach you perseverance, teach you accountability, teach you discipline, and then most importantly, teach you how to lean on God. Lean on God, and not on your own understanding, like the Bible verse talks about. Trusting Him. If you go to bed at night and you have stress in your heart, why do you have stress? Is it financially? Is it your wife's health, or whatever it is, right? If you have stress, are you trusting God then? Right? Like if you're truly trusting God that everything will work out, why are we stressing out? And that's something that I had asked myself, because every night I was going to sleep stressed. But it's like, if I truly trusted God, why am I letting this stress just grip me with so much fear and anxiety? It's like, you know what? I got to control what I can control. I can control working hard on my business. I can control showing up for my job every single day to make sure I'm not getting fired. Showing up for my mom to reprieve her and be there for my son. Be there for my wife when she's in the hospital, to visit her on the hours that I can visit her. And then the other things that I can't control. And I'm going to let God figure out those things that I can't figure out. Yeah. And it's not our burden to carry anyways. It's Him. He wants us. I mean, cast your anxieties and cares on me, for I care for you. Like it says in 1 Peter, like God wants you, like it's not your job to carry it. It's His job. So like, why are we taking it on ourselves? I mean, that's so much of us, right? And it's just that daily reminder of like, am I carrying something today that I shouldn't be carrying, that I should be giving to God? Yeah. And so during that time, discipline, perseverance, being accountable, being more responsible. I mean, I had to grow up quick. I mean, there was no hanging out with the boys. There was no doing anything with that involved pleasure in life. It was literally survival mode for the next 2 to 3, I would say, 2 to 3 years. There was no thriving or getting ahead and seeing progress. Like it was just survive to the next day with my wife's health, survive to the next day financially. Because when my wife got sick, she lost her job. She couldn't physically work. She was legally disabled. So all the bills came on my shoulders. And even with my job, I was making $50K a year salary. I was still $1,000 a month behind on my bills. I had a whole spreadsheet. I never knew how to budget, by the way. So this whole storm too taught me how to budget, put everything together. I was $1,000. I mean, how depressing is that? Knowing that like you can't pay your bills by $1,000 short every single month. And so I began to get a lot of credit card debt, just trying to pay bills and stuff. But I mean, it was inevitable, man. Like we were going to bankruptcy. There was no way out of it. But it's like, what's more important, bankruptcy or my wife's health? I don't really care. So during that time, I lost my job. Well, actually from there, I was at Snap Fitness and I went to a different place, and it was another gym, and it was closer by, made this essentially the same amount of money. I was there for 2.5 months, and I was taking my wife to the hospital a lot. Probably shouldn't have left my Snap position, honestly, but I thought it was better because it was closer to home.
Yep.
Lost my job though, and that was the big turning point of, do I go get another job or do I run 3 nails full time? And I prayed on it, and 3 days later, it's funny how everything happens in threes, right? 3 nails, 3 days, 3 days fast.
A lot of significance to that number.
Right? But I talked to my wife about it, talked to my parents. I said, I know it sounds crazy, but I really believe God is leading me to go 3 nails full time. I just feel it in my bones. Like there's not even like a doubt of like I'm 50-50. Like I need to go all in. And they, again, man, I've got the best parents in the whole world. My dad, unfortunately, is not here with us anymore. He passed away from COVID pneumonia in 2020.
Oh man.
Unexpectedly. It's crazy how that all happened. But man, I owe a lot to both my parents. They truly believed in me so much. And a lot of people can't say the same thing. And I went all in. I went all in. And I still have the same journal that I have today that I wrote down first day as an entrepreneur. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
And even though I didn't feel like a real entrepreneur, I was like, I'm going to make it. And had my task list for that day. And I said, you know what, God, we're going to do it. We're going to make it. And that began the journey.
Wow.
8 months went by where I chose not to pay our mortgage. I knew we were going to foreclose on the property, or in the hopes, I guess, I knew that if I continued didn't pay it, we would foreclose, but it was in the hopes that something would work out where we'd be able to pay this off. And so 8 months goes by. I get a knock on my door with the sheriff, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on in the neighborhood? Or like, there's nothing I did wrong. Gives me papers, says, hey, you have 30 days to, leave the premises. Your house is going up on foreclosure of the auction sale. And shut the door. I looked at the paperwork and I was just like, oh my God, this is really happening. I'm going to lose my house, and I'm going to have to move in with my parents, with my son. Where am I going to put all my stuff? I felt just hopeless. Like I really felt hopeless, even though, that's just the trials that you go through, right? Even though we're Christian, like we believe in God, and we go through this human nature stuff of just feeling hopeless. And I talked to my mom that night, and she was like, yeah, Derek, no, it's all right. You guys can move in. And, we had to get, we were at that time, I think we were on food stamps, and I was literally living on, before we got approved for food stamps, I was living on my parents' freezer for food. So I didn't have to pay for food because we were broke, man, broke. But thank God for his goodness and his grace, man. At this time, Black Friday was just rolling around, and it was October, and I was like, hey, we've got Black Friday. It was 2019. Think about it, 2022 right now. It's just a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's not far ago.
Right.
It feels like a lifetime ago, but it wasn't. And
lots changed since then.
Lots changed. I found this Facebook ads and Instagram ads academy course. It's not available anymore because I get everyone to ask about it. But it was like $5,000 for this course. And dude, I'm broke. I'm broke as a joke. I don't have money. I have a credit card. And so I made a deal with them, and they gave me a deal of like paying $4,000 on it instead of 5. And I did $2,000 now on a credit card, and then $2,000 after our Black Friday that I said I have more money. And I learned how to do Facebook ads. And I said, this is my only hope. And then we did a photo shoot down in Minneapolis with our models to do the video campaign. And I shot it all myself. So a lot of the early days, like the photos and videos, I did have some help from photographers, but all the videos, most of them anyway, were all from myself. I taught myself how to do it. And we launched our Black Friday sale in 2019, and it blew up. That was the turning point in 3 Nails history. Why we're at where we're at now today. We made $28,000 that month in November. At that time was the most money I've ever seen. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, I made $28,000. And I, for the very first time in over 2 years, I didn't pay myself a dime running 3 Nails. No check was ever making out. Never made a withdrawal on my name. I wrote a check for myself for $1,200 just to pay my mortgage. And that was it. It was nothing else out of that $28K. And I mean, this goes to like the discipline I had though. I took all that money. I didn't put it into my own self. I invested it right back in inventory that I knew was going to make me more money so that I could continue paying myself moving forward. And I got on the phone with a mortgage company. Ended up making a deal with them that, hey, we're able to pay this. We got a loan modification loan. We finally had to go through. It was a whole process, but we ended up getting approved. And man, we still got the townhome to this day.
Yeah.
And
man, God's provision. God. Yeah, God's provision.
Yeah.
Just when you needed it.
Oh, yeah. It's just, I mean, if there could be that shining, light coming down from a cloud that everyone wants to think about, I mean, it never comes, right? But in that moment, it felt like it. I was like, I remember because I went to a Barnes & Noble the next day and I wrote myself that check and I was like, wow, like this is real. Like I can be a real entrepreneur, because like I just mentioned earlier, like I felt like a fake entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't have money to pay for myself. How can I call myself an entrepreneur? And now, like, even though it was just a taste, right? And it's not consistent over a year, but like I saw it. I got the proof of concept. I'm like, this can work. Yeah. Put into more inventory. And then COVID hit. And then our shipments got delayed. And then we had another storm to go through. And there's always stuff going on. But my gosh, man, my business was never the same. My Facebook ads and Instagram ads were growing. I learned how to do email marketing, text marketing at a later point, and just learning how to really become a e-commerce, business owner and how to operate it and hiring on employees. I guess I'm hopping too far ahead here, I guess. So right from that point, we started doing well. We had the restock come in, March, April sales, June, and then in August was when we finally moved into the warehouse here. And so now we're in a 5,000 square foot warehouse. I was ended up able to hire one of my close friends in high school, Justin Little, as my operations manager, who's still here with me today. Love that guy. He took a risk on me, and he actually worked remote. He was in North Carolina. Dude, he worked $10 an hour for me at the time, like super limited hours a week. He was just all in. He just wanted to be a part of the vision of it. Yeah. And so now to see him here, as an operations manager, and it's just so cool, the story. But what we were talking about before the podcast started was a year prior to when we moved in, I visited this exact warehouse. And I remember seeing the tour, because you have to see it before you see it in person, right? You have to really plant those seeds in your mind before you can really physically see the manifestation of it. And when I came here, I just had that feeling like this is going to be mine one day, even though there's no way I could afford it. Not a chance I could afford it. And walking around, I took a video so I could watch it, at home later and stuff. And I remember having that timestamp, and I made a YouTube video of it and showing that it was like August 12th or August 14th, something like that. And I just remember, looking at the video, always saying, this is what I'm going to do. And even so then, I guess I failed to say this earlier. On my way back home from my 9-to-5 job, I kid you not, man, almost every single day, because my route comes through here, I would stop in and I would park in this exact parking spot that I park in now today. And I would just pretend that I am the CEO of this place and that this is going to be my warehouse one day that I'm going to drive to every day. And I'm imagining myself getting my coffee and coming there every day in the morning. and you just feel such like a fraud and a fake. But you have to do these mind tricks, man. They work.
Yep.
I mean, it's not even a trick. It's really,
Stepping out in faith.
Yeah, stepping on faith. And, new age people and weird spirituality stuff, we don't go into that. Like the whole different stuff. I'm not talking new age. I'm talking spiritual, biblical stuff that we're talking about. Of, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Amen.
Thinking on the good things, praiseworthy things, as the Bible talks about. Believing in a better life, not only for myself and my family, but to other people and our customers. And so, we moved in, actually signed the lease on July 30th. So August 1st, we actually started moving physical stuff in here. But July 30th is when I signed the lease. And if you look at it, it took less than 12 months, about 12 months, but less than 12 months for my whole life to change forever, to move into the warehouse now, start hiring. My first employee was just me and Justin for the longest time. And then, hiring Brendan on to do, he was just part-time stuff with packaging up orders in the back in the warehouse. And now we got Caitlin, who's a marketing manager. And, it's just, we have consultants, we've got many vendors we work with. It's just like the business has grown so much. And I built this literally by myself. Again, I will preface the fact that I would not be here till this day without my cousin's help, Evan. He was an investor with 3 nails for the first year and a half, 2 years. I would say 2 years. And then he ended up starting his own company, and we just kind of came to the mutual, nothing bad, just like, hey man, I want to, again, we didn't have much money. He was like, hey, I'm going to take my money and put it in my own brand. So I told him, hey, I'll pay you your original investment, which over that time of the last couple of years, he invested in maybe $11,000, I think it was. And I said, on top of that, I'm going to give you this extra bonus. And it was a very generous bonus and way more money than I would think about in my bank account. And luckily for him too, man, he believed in me and he said, all right, sounds great.
Yeah.
And after Black Friday of 2020, so we were here in the warehouse here, I ended up being able to pay him back in full and paid him out as an investor. And so now I'm, 100% owner now. But so just the journey of it, right? Some people like to simplify things. It's a simple thing, but it's not it's not a one size fits all for everybody. You have to figure out what works for you. And for me, having my cousin Evan here, having the people that are in my life for a reason, everybody in my small circle helped me get to where I'm at now. And I'm forever grateful because it wasn't Derek Dahl's smarts. I'm not I do not categorize myself as someone with a high IQ. I just can figure things out. And I just have a relentless hunger to win. And when I mean win, I mean just to make, a good life for myself, my family, impact others, people for God's kingdom, and create freedom, true lasting freedom. And I'm not going to stop until I get there. And I just see too many people now, especially, that just like to sit on the sidelines, binge watch Netflix. We're just in a dopamine world, right?
Yep.
Just, scrolling, and it's we're living in the gold rush opportunity. Your parents, my parents, our grandparents never had this opportunity that we're in right now. Podcasting, this was never a thing, right?
Right.
We have so much opportunity at our fingertips. You just have to go out there and take it.
Yeah. And like you said in one of your vlog videos, a lot of this stuff is free. Social media, this is all free. So why not utilize it?
Yeah. I mean, Facebook and Instagram, they could charge us something just to have an account for a business. They don't. It's free. Mm-hmm. That's why when some people complain about the algorithm or complain about some other stuff, it's man, it's perspective. You guys are just whining out here.
Yeah.
Figure it out. There's so many different ways. So again, just any advice to any young entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there, it's at your fingertips. Your phone is a tool. You can use it for, a tool to distract yourself, numb yourself from your feelings and emotions, which we all have, scrolling, comparing yourself to other people, or you can use it to impact not only your life, create freedom for yourself, your family, impact customers, clients. I mean, again, money is just the result of the impact that you make on customers and clients. You can't just make money out of thin air. I mean, unless you're stock trading and whatnot. But for us, people that are in businesses, e-commerce, I wouldn't want it any other way. I love taking care of our customer. That's something we pride ourselves on, is see other like successful brands out there that don't do any like returns or exchanges. And like, we have like a 60-day policy. Probably shouldn't be saying this, but if anybody emails us like 70 days later, 80 days, like, we'll always take care of people, man.
Yeah.
We're not the people like, we always want to go above and beyond. And I've set that expectation with, the employees that I've hired now is, this is what our culture is. This is who we represent. We are not going to be the same people saying, hey, per our policy, it looks like you missed out on a day, but if you had emailed us yesterday, we would be able to return. It's like, no, take care of your people, and they're going to reward you, throughout, the next few years or however long they stay.
Right.
Your customer lifetime value is so important. And that's the name of e-commerce, is not just creating new customers. You want one guy or one person to buy from you once and buy from you again over and over and over. That's why Facebook and Instagram ads are so powerful, because you're not just paying just to buy them now. You spend $30 to acquire that one customer now, but then over time, that cost of $30 goes down to zero because they're buying from you multiple times.
Yeah.
And people fail to realize that. It's just simple things that I've learned over time that just, I don't understand how other people don't get that. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, this is why we're so successful to this day, is because these principles really are the foundations of my business. And we don't have an investors, right? I don't have to work for anybody. I don't answer to anybody. And that's just so cool, because there's no rules to this now. We get to make the rules, and we can take care of our customers in one way, and how we, work together. And even just the last few weeks, just gas prices are crazy. And so, having Caitlin a little, especially, they, come here every single day. Now they're working from home a couple times a week, and, just save some money on gas and stuff. And, it's just the way of the world, how it's going. It's just like being able to do that. Yeah. It's so cool.
Right.
And it's just freedom at the end of the day is the thing.
Well, and I think too, like, what I really notice is again, just how Jesus is ingrained in everything about this company, right? From how you treat your employees to how you treat the customers. Like, I think that's what really stands out and what separates you guys. Obviously, like you said, you're the only really athletic Christian apparel company out there with such high premium materials, items. And just to see how you go above and beyond to give everything just that kingdom quality, like, to me, that's like, I want to support that, right? Even, and yeah, I like to run, and I'm a athletic guy, but even if I wasn't, like, those are the businesses that I want to support, because I know that, yeah, at the end of the day, what it's about is just building the kingdom and making Jesus known.
Amen. Amen, brother. No, you hit it right on the head. That's one thing that I always promise myself. It's like, if money ever distracted me from the main purpose of keeping, the main thing, which is Jesus, then I need to, do some serious self-reflection, or need to leave. Because you know what? They always say money changes you, but I agree, or I don't agree. I think that money just it amplifies who you already are. And if you're a generous person, you're going to be more generous. And if you're, a Scrooge and want to clench onto it, you're going to be that person. I've always been the person growing up. My first job was Chipotle. This always goes back to Chipotle. I just love Chipotle.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
But I remember getting like my first paychecks and stuff. My friends didn't have a job, and like I would go out and we'd go to like gas stations and I'd be like, hey man, get whatever you want. I would like buy them, energy drinks, and like being able to provide for my friends, right? When other people, like, I didn't have much money to begin with. I could just be like, oh, I want to keep this for myself. It brought me so much joy, man, to bless others and be generous with it. And that's what God wants us to do.
Yeah.
And this is one other really good thing to talk about. So during the whole time when I was working a job, going through this whole financial struggle where I, lost my job and all that stuff, when I made income, right, I tithed every single paycheck. Every single paycheck I did. When I lost my job and I didn't have income, I didn't have anything to tithe off of. But I said, God, and I couldn't even pay my bills at that time either. Like, I'm going to choose. I sat down with my wife at the dinner table and I said, hey, we were not going to be able to pay the bills, but what we're not going to do is steal from God. Like, this is, in Malachi, it talks about it, like, bring your tithes to the storehouse, and test me in this, that I'll not, overflow. I forget the verse, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Your storehouse, I believe. And so it's like, hey, again, this isn't some prosperity trick thing. It's like, no, we're going to be obedient to God and we're going to trust him that he's going to take care of us. And that's really what it is. The tithe isn't about money. It's not an investment so you make more money. It's a heart thing.
Yep.
Can you discipline yourself enough to tithe 10% of every dollar that you make? Give that to God, because he doesn't want your money. He wants your heart.
Yeah.
People mess that up.
Yeah.
He doesn't want your money. He's God. It's like, why? And it's so cool now. Every time that I tithe my paycheck, I always pray over it. Every time it's the same thing of like, it's like a pinch me, like, man, I get to tithe more and more and more as the years go on. And it's still the same cheerful joy in my heart that I have, because before I remember what it was like when I couldn't tithe, when I didn't have income, right? Or the times where I did tithe and I knew I was tithing this money that could help us pay for some food or whatever. And I chose to do that to trust God and how he was able to work things out. I mean, I did my part. I worked hard. Again, it all goes back to I control what I can control. Things that I can't control, I let God take care of. And my goodness, he took care of me.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It really is, because before you bought this warehouse, or before you leased this warehouse, where were you operating Three Nails out of?
Yeah, it's out of my garage. So when I first started the brand, it was in my tiny little basement bedroom. Man, it's just a tiny room, not even a closet in it. And I had two plastic racks holding all of the inventory. We started out with one t-shirt and one pair of jogger. We had a couple different colors of the t-shirts, but just one jogger. So we had 400 t-shirts and then 100 joggers. And I had those fitting on the two racks. And I mean, it's good that you brought this up. So I was a one-man band, right? I packaged up all the orders every single night when I would come home from work. Well, during that time, I didn't have orders every single day, but once I finally started getting some more traction, it was almost every day. And I wrote a handwritten thank you note to every single order. And again, it's always going above and beyond. What can I do? Why would they shop from me when they can go to Nike, Adidas, and all these other big places, or another Instagram brand out there? I wanted to make it special and, truly make it personable to that person, appreciate them, right? Like, you're supporting my small business, or you're supporting my family and my dream. Like, it's so cool. And still to this day, I can't do it now, otherwise I would be doing nothing else. But we have cards now, right? Like, it's all written. I have the message on there that we put it in every thank you letter in every single order. But orders that are bigger, that have many different items in it, I'll always write a thank you card for those people still to this day, because it's still just that brings me back to the roots, man.
Yeah.
And so, I operated out of that little bedroom. And then once we started growing and getting more inventory, I grew it to my garage, so I wasn't able to park in my garage anymore. We don't have a big garage. It's just a small, barely could fit 2 cars in there. Then I started getting plastic racks out there. And even during that time, too, we never did like shows, but Gabby's sister, she has a clothing brand as well. It's called Silo Apparel, and has a women's boutique that she's very successful in. And she was doing this event at a winery. And I was thinking, Christian Brennan winery, maybe. And so they invited us, and my goodness, man, they loved us. We made like $1,000 our first day there, and this was at the time where I was making like, $2,000, $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so, it just brings me back to that time of like during the things in my garage, I'd have some things packed up ready to go to event. And we did a few events. I would say like total throughout the whole history of Three Nails, I probably did maybe 6 events or maybe 7. But it was just at that winery. And then I did another one at some festival that just didn't really end up working out well. But that winery was just prime. And it was like in a rural area. Not many people knew about it. In Chisago, Minnesota.
Yep.
And being able to give my story there too, talk about the brand in person. That was the first time, because everything's been online, right? And through like advertising. And so it was really cool being able to have those people. And, now when they shop from us, they say, hey, I remember you when you were out here. And man, that's crazy.
and I mean, this story is crazy, but like in a God crazy way, right? I mean, you literally had a sheriff on your doorstep, knocking at your door saying, hey, we're going to take this house from you. You can't afford it. You got 30 days to get out. To now, here you are, in this warehouse, and business wise, this is a $1 million company, a multi-million-dollar company now.
Yep. $2.5 million company now.
Yeah. I mean, just crazy. Like as you look at that, as you look where God has brought you from, how do you, I guess one of the big questions I have for you is, how do you remain humble? How do you remain close to the Lord, just with, again, just the success, but his provision? How do you stay rooted in that and not let the temptations of, material things or worldly things get to you or get to your family?
Yeah, I think it's, first and foremost, it's like, I would never be here without God. So I don't want to be disobedient to him and what his calling is for my life. And it's like, I enjoy nice things. I do, I love cars. I've had like the Lamborghini posters up in my room as a child. I don't have a Lamborghini, not yet anyway. But it's like things like that. When people look at like materialistic things, they think like immediately that all I care about is just material things.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just took me to this, just this past fall to finally get our new Escalade for our family. But it's like before that, man, like I ran my car into the ground. So it's like I've never been like, I've always been focused on the business and what's going to, provide for my family more so than just like material. Yeah, I own a $2.5 million company. I still live in my same townhouse right now. Like there's no rush to just go and get bigger things. Like I enjoy it because I'm a minute away. My life is really good lifestyle wise right now. My mortgage is, $1,200. Like I'm fine. I don't need to go get a huge house right now or anything for that matter. Right. Like, so I think it's really perspective. And as like everybody's going to judge you as long as these things don't define you in life and you don't put your identity in it. Because at the moment you put your identity in, a car or a house or owning $1 million business and all that stuff, if you lose any of those things, you're gonna be wrecked. You're gonna be crushed, and you have to have that spiritual backing. And I think it goes to routines, which is something we could even touch on too, because I love talking about it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Is morning routine, night routine, something that really helped me get to where I'm at today. When I was in my garage days before I was in the warehouse, when I was the fake entrepreneur, so to speak, right? I was like, hey. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what a morning routine was. I looked up YouTube videos on it. I saw what other success leaves clues. Look at what other CEOs are doing and then just replicate it and make it into your own. These other people were doing meditation and doing all these different things, didn't really spend time with God. I was like, okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it in a godly way. I'm going to meditate and visualize, my future and, moving into the warehouse and doing all these things that I want to do, but I'm going to visualize, doing this in a godly way and, giving back to my community and, what it'll feel like, and then spending time with God one-on-one every single morning. So like every single morning I wake up, and again, I'm not perfect. Some days I miss it, but like it's clockwork now. Wake up, read my Bible for the very first thing before I do anything. And I usually wake up early at, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., kind of like around that. And then I've been trying some different routines out now just to see what works best for me. But usually when I'm on my game, 5 a.m., so there's no one up, right? It's just me and God. And there's just something about being alone in that dark world, right? There's no light out. And everyone's sleeping and you're spending time with God. It's so quiet, it's so peaceful. There's no cars out and stuff. And spending time with him, praying, meditating, asking him what, his will is for your life, but also more importantly, not just making prayer about yourself, which is something that I've had to learn, of just asking for, God, giving your prayer list to him. It's like really praising him. Like he is the Alpha and Omega. He is the first and last. He is the creator.
Amen. Preach it.
Yeah. I mean, how dare we just get in prayer, just start talking about the things that we need in life when we have to magnify his goodness and how just magnificent he is, and how we're talking about the creator. And Miles Monroe says in one of his books, he's like, if you were to shake hands with God in the very beginning, you would be shaking hands with all potential in life. Yeah. Everything came from him. He is outside the confines of this world, and that you can't even wrap your head around that, because everyone says, well, where did God come from? It's like he didn't come from, he is and was and will always be. There's nowhere to come from in that. He's not in a box. It's crazy to just, I get goosebumps just thinking about God,
Yeah.
Jesus, the Holy Trinity, Holy Spirit that's in this earth, in this room with us right now, leading this podcast. So going back to it, routines, you really are training yourself mentally, and you're not just reading a book, you're not just meditating. I mean, you're training yourself to take on things during that day, during the week, during the month. You are becoming mentally stronger every single day, and you're disciplining yourself, and you're building confidence in your own self, because you're saying, hey, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to do this, 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 this. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to come home, eat breakfast with my son, shower, and go to the office. And when you follow through with your promises, you begin gaining confidence in your own self. You believe in yourself. It's the times where you say, okay, I want to do this, and you don't do it. And then, you don't have confidence in yourself because you're not, following through on the promise that you believe for yourself. So that's why working out, not only is it so good, scientifically, right, for like our body, endorphins and all the stuff that people talk about, but you're following through with your promises. You're gaining confidence in yourself from doing those routines, and on top of it, looking better and feeling better about your own self. So I'm a huge, huge advocate of sports in life, business in life. I mean, this thing is really like 90% mental. It's not like the physical game and like doing the workouts and stuff. So yeah, if you don't have a routine right now, I highly, highly recommend looking it up. Look me on YouTube if you want. I've got a 4:30 a.m. morning routine video that I go step by step of what I do. Spending time with God first and foremost, first half hour of the day. You have to give God, the first. And one thing here on this question too is, when we moved into the warehouse, I told Little, I said, hey, I have a spiritual mentor. His name is Apostle Felix. He lives in Chicago, Illinois. And I made a promise to him that I would do a Bible study every single Monday morning before we did with like the employees, right? Like when I have employees.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so once Little came here, I said, hey, this is something that I promised Apostle, because he's like, Derek, we need to continue giving honor to God before you do anything. Before you open a laptop or whatever, give honor to God. And I have not broken that promise. Every single Monday, there's been mornings where I can't be here, right? There's been multiple consecutive mornings that I haven't been able to make here because of my wife's health or whatever's going on. But Little's here in my place. And most importantly, when I am here, I'm able to lead the Bible study. We pick a devotional off of the Bible app, YouVersion.
Yep.
And we read it, we talk about it, and then we end it in prayer. We pray and to start our week. And that's how we start our weeks here at Three Nails every single week. And I will forever do that to the end of time. And I hope everybody keeps me accountable on that, because I am not going to break that promise.
Man, so cool. So cool. Just being able to talk with you, Derek, and really get to see your heart for God. I mean, it's just so I'm getting like fired up just listening to you, and this is, inspiring and motivating to me. I was telling you that, throughout this week, I've been watching a lot of your YouTube videos, and I watched the very first one that you posted. I think it was probably back in 2019. And in it, you said, hey, I just want to document this journey, and at that time, you were, I think you were still working, the 9 to 5, still running it out of the garage. I think even to the basement to some extent too. You showed some footage in there. And again, here we are, March of 2022. Here you are, and here God has done just amazing things with Three Nails. What's that like for you to reflect back on everything that God has done in your life?
Man, just even hearing you speak, say that out loud is crazy to think, because, when I wake up now, it's like the goal, right? Like you got different things, we're on a mission, right? This is all about God's purpose and what he's doing in our life. But yeah, it's so cool to just have the pinch me moments and look back on and say, wow, like God did it. Not I did it. I put my work into it, but God did it. And he aligned. Like if I would have never seen this Facebook ad that came through for this academy, I never would have, like, you know what I mean? Like the timing of everything. Like if I would have just like left work 20 minutes later and got home later and didn't see that ad that night, like, you know what I mean? Like just how everything happened, and like the sale and just the faith and taking risk on credit cards, just like everything that happened during that time, and just how God really mentally just kept me together. And it's, man, I'm humbled. I'm honored more than anything that God would choose me. I do believe he could have chose anybody out there. And, maybe he did. Maybe he did choose somebody else that wasn't brave enough to take the leap like I did. And so I guess kind of apply this in your own life of what's God telling you today? And are you too afraid to take the leap of that? Or are you going to jump, aggressively swim up that river? I know it looks scary and it's unknown and there's no security in it that you may think. But if God's got a plan for you, which he does, and the vision is from God, you're already a success. Yeah. And all the things now, the warehouse, the employees, the, $2.5 million and all this stuff and growing. I mean, this already was when I made that decision back then to set those routines, to keep God first, to hammer at this brand every single day, to not give up. I didn't see a dime the first 2 years. You know how many people would have just given up, not seen any money in return? So that's why, but for me, again, I wasn't doing this just to make money. Like other people are like, oh, I want to start this business and I better make a return within the first year or 2 years. No, we're in this for the long game. Purpose, fulfillment, passion, freedom. My wife never has to work a job the rest of her life, whether she's sick or healthy. That's so freeing to me as a man, on like just talking like in a human level. And then you talk about like spiritual wise, the impact we're making to customers, the emails that we get of like, my gosh, you guys are my favorite clothing brand. I've wiped out my whole wardrobe and they're spending thousands of dollars with us to, literally only wear 3 nails. I mean, that's a blessing. And always taking care of those people. I'm humbled, man. I'm honored. I wake up every single day and I do remind myself of not to take it for granted, because I remember when I had to wake up on a time schedule and have to be on someone else's clock and have to call them if I had to bring my wife to the hospital or if you're sick or whatever. I'm living the dream. I got freedom and I can make impact and make money and use that money for God's good. And now we've, just recently partnered with Agape International Missions, and we are able to give a portion of our proceeds every single month to fund their missionary trips over in Cambodia. And it's child sex trafficking. Oh, man. And I mean, my heart just tears. I mean, especially now, like my son here, like the evil and corruption in this world, as you know, I mean, there's so much out there, man. And I wasn't, given the purpose to be a missionary, but my purpose is to be a businessman, and I can use my funds and my resources to fund those people. So really, we are all intertwined, and God has a purpose for every single one of us, and we're supposed to help each other out through this life. And so the more money we make, the more we're going to give and continue to give and be generous. And so, yeah, they were able to help fund these SWAT teams that are partnered with the government in Cambodia. And they don't just grab one girl or save one girl like they used to in the past. They're able to knock down the door of a brothel and save like 22 plus girls at a time. And then arrest the people that own that brothel. And it's just like, dude, I got goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's so cool, man, to be able to just play a small role into that.
Yeah, what an honor.
And it's just like, none of this would have happened, right? None of this would have happened if I didn't take action and take that first step. Even though it was scary, I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody to show me how to do it besides Google and YouTube. Yep. And so I just tell everybody out there, man, God's got a plan for you, purpose for you. It's already inside of you. You're destined for greatness. And that is not cliche or cheesy. Man, like you don't have to, wrap that into money-wise, like, being an artist, being a teacher. God has given you the talents and skills where you need to be, and it's the most natural to you. And you're going to be the best at that thing. You're never going to have a purpose in your life where you're just gonna be like, gosh, I really hate doing this, but I know this is my purpose. It just doesn't happen. It's what God has naturally given you the ability to do.
Yeah, man. So good. So good. Yeah. And you talk about that too a lot in your YouTube videos of finding your niche and then finding your purpose. And man, definitely sounds like you found your purpose. This has been amazing. How can people find 3 Nails or follow you?
Yeah, so our website, the only way to get 3 Nails is through our direct website. It's 3nailsclothing.com. You can find me on Instagram, Derek_Dahl. I'm on YouTube. If you just search my name, Derek Dahl, you can find my YouTube channel. It's something that I'm really excited about this year, is really going all in on that. I got Brendan here helping me out with the video editing, and, we're trying to pump out at least 2 videos a week of main content. And then I'm, like I told you previously, of doing, YouTube shorts and TikToks, and just trying to, again, give as much value as I can. I'm still trying to figure this game out, right? I'm 29 years old. I'm still young in the perspective of where I'm at business wise. But it's so exciting to figure this out and just share the knowledge, because really, I do believe the things that have changed your life, you can't keep it to yourself. You have to share that with other people. And this business, this vision from God, has forever changed my life for the better. Not only changed my life, changed my employees' life, changed, my family's life, my friends' life, like people that I can give back to and be generous. And yeah, again, I just can't say it enough, man. I owe everything to God.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Man. All glory to God. Well, Derek, man, it's been such a privilege and an honor getting to connect with you and hear your story. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh man, for everyone listening, this is my very first podcast. I was just telling Terry, I've gotten a lot of podcast requests the last couple of years of 3 Nails, and I've always declined every single one of them, every speaking engagement, because I just wanted to be head down. And, Terry reached out, and I even told him no a few weeks back or a month ago. And until recently, I met with a mentor of mine and said, hey, man, you got to get your story out there. You got to start getting on podcasts. And I messaged Terry. And this is such an honor to be, it's my first podcast on, you having me on your podcast for my very first one. I'm very honored. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, praise God for everything. And man,
Amen.
Keep doing what you're doing. This is great stuff.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. All glory to God.
I left 3 Nails headquarters feeling so inspired. I'm glad Derek is now doing podcasts and interviews, because he has an amazing ability to be real, raw, encouraging, and motivating. Derek is a great example of what it looks like to chase after the purpose God has for your life with the mentality that if God is for you, who can be against you? There is no failure when you know without a shadow of a doubt that you are walking in what God has for you. And that's so evident in Derek's life and in 3 Nails. So I hope that Derek's story and the success of 3 Nails inspires anyone listening to be obedient to the call God has put on your life and to step out in faith, trusting that God will prove himself true to his character and his word. If you have any questions for Derek, use the hashtag AskTWT and we'll get Derek to answer a few. And guys, seriously, go to 3nailsclothing.com and check out their apparel. This stuff is legit. Comfortable, stylish, premium quality, and most importantly, representing the message of the cross. I'll put a link to the site in the show notes, as well as links to Derek's YouTube channel and Instagram page. That's it for this week's show, and if you guys are being blessed by these testimonies, please leave those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, share these on social media, and tell your friends and family about Testimonies with Terry. I'll be back with another testimony next week, so in the meantime, make sure to live your life in such a way that glorifies God and kicks Satan's butt. Peace.